What is good, Nio family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Nio stock, what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to be doing something very interesting, and that is showing you the previous CPI days that came out for the markets and how on earth they actually affected Nio, because tomorrow is a very important day. CPI is coming out once again, and I'm going to use some historical data to give you an understanding of what Nio may end up doing based on previous trends. I'm also going to talk about what on earth the report is suggesting, why CPI may be very, very high, and what on earth different possibilities may do to Nio's share price based off what we're seeing. I'm also going to end the video by talking about what Nio put on their Twitter page, which is still some very bullish news for the long-term future, despite the red we've seen from Nio over the last couple of months. Now, before I break any of this down, before I get into any details, I gotta mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Nio community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 10 free stocks, each worth up to $2,500. And the best part is, out of the 10 free stocks, 5 are going to come from the wheel right here, meaning you could win 5 free AMC shares, 5 free Apple shares, or 5 free Tesla shares, or a mix of all of them. The offer ends in just 3 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So Nio did manage to actually close green today, which is a pretty good sign, but there are some important things I need to say about the share price that could actually affect it going forward. Now, it's good to see Nio having this gap up here because this thing may actually see a bullish move over the next, I would say, week and a half. But before we get there, we have the CPI report coming out, and this may actually have a negative effect on the market and temporarily bring Nio down. So I'm going to show you why I think that, why on earth you have to be paying attention to this, how this could affect the markets, and how this may affect Nio. So CPI, if you don't know what that is, CPI is essentially just one of the major inflationary measures that big economists and investors and hedge funds and etc. use. And because it's so accepted, we have to actually look at this data. Now, I know the numbers could be manipulated. I know that this is not always 100% perfect, but this is the number that the markets go with, which is why we have to at least use it, take it into consideration when it comes to investing in the stock market. So CPI is expected to be very, very hot and at its hottest we've seen for the year. And they're expecting it to hit 8.8%. And they're basically talking about the fact that this could be the peak, but at the same time, we're seeing other metrics of inflation, such as core inflation, dropping from 6% to about 5.7% in their expectations. So that means some things, like clothes, their inflation rate was expected to drop, but energy, when you include energy and gas and those things, it's expected to be insanely high, almost 9%. So I'm going to break this down for you. Why on earth is it most likely going to be super high? Well, when we look at the data, gas prices, energy were just going up and up and up. CPI has a tendency of kind of weighing in energy a lot harder than other things, other PCE reports and things like that. And you'll notice May was right here, and then June is up here. So we saw an increase in gas prices like crazy. If we actually look at the specific numbers, I mentioned this previously. Let me just quickly go over this. In May, the average US gas price, all right, for the country, for retail, was $4.55. For June, we have $5. That's almost a 10% increase in gas prices. That alone could really boost the CPI up, and it's not the best of signs because when CPI keeps going up, it's an indication that inflation is just going up and up and up. It's not good for the markets because what this means is that the Fed may have to get more hawkish. The Fed may not be doing a good job. I mean, that's obviously contentious. It's up to you to decide. And it also means that a lot of eyes are going to be on the Fed, on Jerome Powell, what his new policies are going to be, what he's going to do about these issues. And if he is even more hawkish, if he raises rates even more aggressively, we see even more quantitative tightening and so on and so forth through their open market operations, this is most likely going to lead to more blood for the markets, right? Because the market does not like, the tightening that we're seeing. The market doesn't like seeing the rates just kind of increasing over and over again like this. It leads to more fear. It leads to different assets being reallocated in the markets and more money ending up in the sidelines. So as a result of this and the high reverse repo market, we're seeing lots of downside. So the question is, how has NIO responded to these CPI reports? And one of the things I need to note is that NIO has a tendency of being at least somewhat correlated with the overall market. Sometimes it could move more aggressively depending on what's happening, as it has a beta that's above 1. But what I see personally happening to NIO is we could actually use historical data to help us understand what may end up coming. So I have some interesting information here. I basically have the previous CPI reports for every month of this year, and we could actually compare this with how NIO ended up performing. So I also have the dates that the CPI came out. Just to remind you guys, so when we have, for instance, for the month of June 2022, the CPI report comes out on July 13th, 8:30 a.m. So remember, when it comes out, the month it comes out, it's going to be for the previous month that was completed. So we haven't finished July, we finished June. So the June report is coming out tomorrow, just to remind you all. So going forward, let's actually look at the data. So we had a 7.5% report for the month of January. The report came out in February, right, for the entire month of January. And you could see what happened to NIO was inflation was really high, right? 7.5% was high. I apologize if the numbers are small. Just bear with me, please. And you could see 7.5%. NIO, what did NIO do? It went from 26 bucks, dropped all the way down to 23, pushed up one last time before seeing a big dump like this. And this solely was not because of that. There were different factors out there, such as the virus, such as so many other things in the markets, the Fed, they all played a role as well. But we could see the response that NIO had after the report was downside, right? When we saw inflation that hot. The question is, what happened the next time this happened? Well, the next report for the month of February, it came out in March, and we got 7.9% CPI. That's still very, very high. So in March, what happened to NIO? NIO pushed up to about 20 bucks, and it gapped down and it crashed down to 17 in one day. Huge drop, massive, massive drop from NIO. It crashed that day. And when CPI was that hot, the next day it crashed even harder and it slowly downtrended down to $13, right? Once again, there are many factors such as the Fed playing a role, but we can see this reaction right here. Look at this big drop that NIO had when inflation was too high. The market doesn't like that. However, despite dropping that hard, NIO had room for some nice reversals, and NIO managed to run from 13 all the way up to about 24 bucks. And NIO did this with the overall market. We had a temporary kind of relief rally. And what happened after that is when things became even more interesting. So the next CPI report comes out. I believe it's for the month of March. It came out in April at 8.5%. That was crazy high. And what did NIO do? The market anticipated this, so we saw some sideways action, but then what happened was NIO slowly started to drop. It was kind of like a reaction after that, and we started downward trending due to the Fed, due to the lockdowns in China. A bunch of things played a role, but we could see the CPI didn't play a massive role in us dropping as hard. It maybe slowly played a role when other factors were introduced, but we were respecting a downward trend, and we started to downward trend after that, and NIO slowly started to drop to these levels. Now, what happened was the next report comes out for May. I'm sorry, for April. It came out in May. So then this is the next report. For April, we had an 8.3% CPI report. This was reported in May. All right. So May comes. What does NIO do? A few days before, NIO has this massive gap down because people realized the reports were not looking the best, and the market started to price this in. It started dropping and dropping, and NIO went from 18 bucks just a couple of days before, and 1 week it dropped all the way down to about 13. And after that, we saw this thing just continue to drop for a couple of days until it went as low as $11 a share. So it crashed to $11. Then it got a nice reversal finally, pushed all the way up to about, that's like 17 bucks around there. And after that, we essentially saw it push up one last time. Then finally, another report comes. The report that came out in June for the month of May comes out at 8.6%. Once again, another peak. Look at how NIO responded. We got this gap down the day before. The report comes and NIO crashes Nio goes from 18 bucks all the way down to the 17s, and it drops all the way down to the 15s. It took a big hit. After that, Nio found its bottom after a couple of days. It started pushing up because we had not earnings, but a lot of very bullish catalysts that were coming out. It wasn't necessarily just like earnings, but a lot of really, really nice catalysts came out that really pushed Nio up. The market was also showing some improvement. Nio pushes all the way up to 24 bucks. It was doing well. And I think that's the time earnings was actually. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to double check on that. But anyways, Nio got rejected off 24. It dropped. It started pushing up, and you'll notice a trend that we were seeing in the past, and that is Nio's already starting to gap down. We got this big gap down. Does that mean Nio is just going to crash all the way down to like $11? No, it doesn't mean that. But what this means is that we most likely have some more downside if this report is not good. Now, does that mean it's going to just keep dropping? No, we may fill the gap pretty quickly and come back to these levels in the next couple of weeks, maybe. But before that, after CPI comes out, it's not going to look too good, in my opinion, considering that it's most likely going to be hot. So let's go over the possibilities. Let me just put this out there real quick. If we somehow get an 8.4 to 8.5% CPI report, that's going to be pretty good. Not that that report itself is good. I mean, that's actually pretty bad in general, but 8.6% is what we got during the last report. Let me just show you again. The last time this was reported back in June when this came out, it was 8.6% for the month of May. So for the next report that's coming out tomorrow, if we get something below 8.6%, that would be pretty good. Like I said, 8.6 itself would still be okay because the market is expecting it to be pretty bad, but these are very, very unlikely. Now, 8.7 to 8.8% would be pretty bad in my opinion. That's very high. And that's most likely what we're going to see. In fact, I think it's going to be most likely one of these. Now, 8.9%, and remember, I underlined 8.8% because that's what the expectation is. And I do think it's most likely going to be around there. That's pretty bad. 8.9% would be very bad, and 9% or higher would be horrible. Now, are we going to see 9%? Are we going to see 8.6%? I think both of those are unlikely. It's most likely going to be one of these three. So, with that said, it's either going to be 8.7, 8.8, or 8.9. I think that no matter which one it is, and these are most likely what it's going to be, I think it's just not going to be good for the markets. I think we're most likely going to see red in response to this because historically, I showed you the data. When we have these, reports, Nio has a tendency of dropping after. Look at how it dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped, and it tends to do that. So I do think Nio is most likely going to see some downside. I think the markets are most likely going to see downside, and I don't see Nio filling the gap up here just yet. We have a gap down here to the 19. I do think Nio is going to fill that gap maybe as soon as tomorrow. We could be dropping to the low 19s if the market is very bloody red. And I do think the reports are most likely going to lead to downside instead of upside. So that's really how I'm seeing it. I'm not saying Nio is just going to straight up crash and it's the end of the world. It might get a nice bounce off like 19 or 18 and come back up to the 20s. I mean, it's very, very possible. With that said, I just want to put it out there that this is basically what you got to look out for. If Nio can't hold that $20 level, that's the key zone. We got to hold 20. If we don't hold it, we're most likely going to fill the gap down to 19. We could actually achieve that in one day if it's that extreme. Now, additionally, where will Nio bounce at? It might not bounce specifically at 19. It could go a little lower to the 18.5 to $18 level. If we do drop again for the next day, that would be like on Thursday or even Friday. So just be prepared for some potential downside. This is not because Nio made a bad move. This is the overall market that would prop it down and affect it. So please, please, please don't attack Nio if we see potential downside. It's just the most likely possibility. Now, if let's just say hypothetically, and although this is extremely unlikely, the market does get some bullish moves. I mean, the most bullish thing Nio would do would fill the gap up here to the 22.6 level. I do think that is very unlikely though, but I want to prepare you guys for anything. So to end the video, before I talk about Nio's tweet, I want to put it out there. This is most likely going to drop. It's most likely going to fill the gap soon, down to the 19s. All right. I know it's hard for you to hear that. You should be prepared for that. And I do think that CPI is going to come out as hot. With that said and done, I want to talk about this new tweet that came out from Nio. We could see on June 20th, a Norwegian TV personality and retired professional cyclist, his name is Dago Lauritzen. He participated in Norway's first Seeds talk at NIO House Oslo. So that's very, very awesome. Industry leaders, Nobel Prize winners, and Olympic gold medal winners have used this forum to share their knowledge. So for him, a man of his professionalism, he was a professional cyclist, to be actually promoting NIO at their NIO house in Oslo. It's amazing to see that NIO's gaining recognition. They're gaining a lot of, you know, they're really, really putting themselves out there and gaining a lot of insight, and they're really, really doing a great job at spreading their words and gaining credibility. With that said and done, I'm very bullish for NIO. I think the short term, yes, we may see downside. I mentioned it before, and I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, but the long term is still beautiful. It's going to be very bright, in my opinion, based off their products, based off the data, and so on and so forth. With that said, thank you for listening. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Stay strong and be ready for tomorrow. It's going to be a massive day for the markets. NIO to the moon, and peace out.